Obviously, FaZe has sort of been in some sort of perpetual meltdown the entire time. My body was also in a perpetual meltdown. And just to kind of make everybody, you know, bring them all up to speed, the future of FaZe is in a very weird spot. Because as we know, they have been one of the kind of most mismanaged properties for a long, long time. Now, I won't bore you by going into the history of all the stuff I spent years covering before, all of the scams, all of the gambling, all of the FTC stuff. There's no point. It doesn't matter. People still let this all just get away with fucking... I mean, you know, it would take a murder at this point, I think, for anyone in esports to condemn them. I'll never forget all of the people that wanked off about this fucking disgraceful organisation when they made the Sports Illustrated cover and did it to the detriment of the actual esports competitors that should have put them on the cover in the first place. And all they talked about was being great influencers and making money. And by the way, go back and read that trash article, which everybody in FaZe said, if you want a journalist to do an expose, you want this guy to write it. Well, look how terrible it's fucking aged. Go back and read it. It's actually an embarrassment that there's a byline on that saying, you know, oh, FaZe really changing the game. What, by like just losing money? You know, like, by literally being on their fucking knees begging for cash. Yeah, wicked. So anyway, this is sort of the run of what's been going on at FaZe, you know? Like, we know there's this sort of weird thing going on behind the scenes where FaZe, under the guidance of Lee Trink, wanted to sort of, like, make them this new corporate superpower, giving positions of people on the board like Snoop Dogg and Stephanie McMahon, and they're doing it at the expense of the influencers that sort of built the brand. But as we found out, many of those influencers that built the brand were building the brand off contract, off spec, and then expecting this entity that's been took over by people they invited into the house. And, you know, we all know the thing. Vampires only get in if you invite them, kids. You know, like, that's how it works. And once you invite a vampire in your house, if he decides to fucking go full Dracula and eat you, shouldn't have invited the fucker in the first place. That's esports. We keep inviting Dracula in for a cup of tea and thinking he's going to leave. Oh, why are you bringing the coffin in, Dracula? No, don't worry about it, kids. It's fine. They obviously went on the stock exchange, and while this sort of weird fucked up power play was going on in the background, and you know, it started out $20 a share. Remember, Snoop Dogg came out, didn't he, crip walking with a FaZe thing around everything was coming up FaZe. They were doing all the media works in FaZe is the future, it's the future, man. Forbes chimed in with another one of their clown-esque valuations. They're the first ever $1 billion esports organization. FaZe is worth $1 billion, is it? Well, okay, good. Let's see how it goes then. But over time, obviously, the stock starts to decrease. People realize, actually, like, why is FaZe worth all this money? Loads of the influencers that were given stock options, they had a hold on when they could sell. And then, obviously, when that lapsed, guess what they did? They sold. And eventually, the share price plummeted down to embarrassing levels. And to the point where, as we'll get to, they were threatened with being delisted off the NASDAQ, finally. It was reported that was likely to come, but there was a few little errors in that, but now it's accurate and we're all on the same page. So this was from the 24th of March. And it's weird, by the way, that they keep having Banks as the face of FaZe. I want to make this clear. Whatever you think about Banks, he's not been the face of FaZe for a long, long time. He has almost close to zero influence over them right now. If anything, he is being used, and he is only still hanging around FaZe because he is absolutely desperate to get a paycheck. That's it. Like, people don't realize those guys got. So anyway, last stream we looked at the Tico video, and you can see FaZe Clan itself has been open about the issues they've been having. We know that for too long, we haven't been the FaZe we need to be, but we're working hard towards fixing that. We hope to have all the OGs sit down together soon, and we don't want to do that without everyone. We'll do everything in our power to work this out and not let you down. And this basically came as a number of those, you know, top influencers were saying, listen, We want recognition. We're not treated like co-owners. We don't have equity. You know, we don't have any influence over the direction that the org's going in, and we want that to change. After going public and hemorrhaging all this money, they now want to walk that back. Remember, by the way, all of the statements that people like Lee Trink made are all still publicly available about how going public was the best thing for FaZe and everybody could own a piece of it. All of those people who bought stock, by the way, for the nominal price when it launched, all got robbed blind. You all got done. There was no other outcome except this. And it's so shocking to me. I almost question, because I don't know enough about financial law, but I do not know how this can be legal. I do not know how it can be legal to float stocks and shares, sell at $20, knowing it's all pie in the sky bullshit, mismanage the brand to the point where the shares plummet to a literal penny stock, and then you turn around and go, whoopsie doodle, I guess we just go private now. Like, it's actually insane. But anyway, they got their warning. This is the Deserto write-up on it. You can see here it was on the same day that was reported. On the 23rd, they got a letter from the NASDAQ informing them that their common stock failed to comply with the $1 minimum bid price required for continued listing on the NASDAQ capital market for 30 consecutive business days, in accordance with NASDAQ listing rule 5810C3. The company has been provided an initial period of 180 calendar days or until September 19, 2023, known therein as the compliance date, by which the company has to regain compliance with the minimum bid price requirement. That's according to their March 24th SEC filings. To regain compliance, the closing bid price of the common stock must meet or exceed $1 per share for a minimum of 10 consecutive business days. Now, you'll remember it was reported initially it would need it to be 30 days in a row. But the bottom line is FaZe sort of left struggling to come up with a means through which they can get back to being over $1 a share and maintain it for a 10-day period. Now, 10 days isn't all that long, but the issue then is, let's say we do it, we get back to above $1, which, by the way, would be doubling the share price right now somehow, which I don't know how they would do it. Then they have to maintain it for 10 days, while everybody knows that if it dips out at one point and they can't do it for 10 consecutive days, you know, you reset the clock, you stop the count, Trump style-y. So I don't think they're even going to give a shit about that. In fact, as we know publicly, they're all saying we're going to go private. Like, now we're going to have people come in and buy FaZe again and be privately owned, like we should have done. You can go and look up the SEC filings if you're really nerdy. They put out this thing called like a forward-looking statement, and it's where they say like, oh, we think it's, you know, going to be good, or, you know, like everything's going to be okay. And if you look into it, they obviously, in the small print, you can just say that it's just a prediction, so it doesn't even really matter. But it said here, the company expects to report that revenue in its fiscal year of 2022 was $70 million, an increase of $17.2 million, or 32% over the $52.8 million in fiscal year 2021. B, its loss from operations in the fiscal year 2022 was $48.7 million, a decrease of $17.2 million, or 55% over the $31.5 million in the fiscal year 2021. And C, net loss in fiscal year 2022 was $168.5 million, a decrease of $131.7 million, or 357% over the $36.9 million in fiscal year 2021. Please refer to the company's shareholder letter, the company furnished as Exhibit 99 to the company's current report on Form 8KA, blah, 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 blah. So, they've been absolutely hemorrhaging cash. Like, it's not even funny. And they've been basically saying, we're going to fucking struggle to turn all this around. We need to go private. We need to have people buy in and buy in high. And if we don't, we've got until November 2023. Now, amidst this, you remember I did a stream where I was talking about how, like, the people that are on the board at FaZe don't care about the success of FaZe. And the Snoop Dogg deal will go down as one of the worst deals ever done by an esports entity in terms of bringing in an influencer for clout, attention, etc., etc. This is the PC Gamer Report, because he's not there anymore. He's crip walked in and he's crip walked out. Like, he is not fucking doing it anymore. This is the headline. Snoop Dogg was so eager to quit FaZe Clan's board, he dumped around 214,000 shares to do it. Things are going from bad to worse for FaZe Clan. The esports lifestyle brand that belly flopped onto the NASDAQ with a public listing in July last year. Deserter reports that the company has lost one of its most famous backers, weed evangelist and hip-hop artist Snoop Dogg, who resigned from its board of directors on March 29th, which was revealed in an SEC filing by the company yesterday. On March 29th, 2023, Calvin Snoop Dogg Broadus Jr. notified FaZe Holdings Incorporated he is resigning from the board of directors, read the filing, but noted that the resignation was not the result of any disagreement with the company or any of its subsidiaries. So at least they're still friends. No, it's got nothing to do with a disagreement and everything to do with the fucking fact that it's just, like, Snoop Dogg's the type of dude who he'll go anywhere if there's a paycheck involved. And if something's even like vaguely successful, and he can make money from it, he's happy to be associated with it. For him to like walk away from FaZe is like, you may as well just publicly say like, oh yeah, FaZe is shit. Like, it's a shit brand, you know? The SEC filing doesn't detail why Snoop has elected to abandon his seat on the board, but it's not hard to figure out. The company has seen multiple executive resignations in the past year, and its fortunes haven't recovered since its initial public listing. It recorded a loss of $168.5 million. That's what we just talked about with the SEC filings. And Deserter also reports that FaZe Clan has been served with a deficiency notice by NASDAQ. We've also just talked about that. So it seems pretty likely that Snoop isn't just isn't optimistic about FaZe Clan's future prospect and is getting out while the getting is not exactly good, but better than it might be a few months from now. Sportico reports that Snoop was so eager to get out, he sacrificed about 214,000 shares to do so, leaving him with around 106,000 or so shares that are worth far less than their original value when he was awarded to them. So in other words, by not sticking around on the board, he lost his stock options, and the 214,000 shares, it's so meaningless to him at 50 cents on a share. He's just like, it's not even worth sticking around and being associated with it to have them. And obviously, I imagine as soon as he's able, he'll be offloading them 106,000 shares, which, by the way, right now is like 50 grand. 50 grand. Like, despite all this, FaZe Clan CEO Lee Trink remained determinedly chipper in the letter to shareholders. We are taking the right steps to position the business for successful long-term growth, he said, adding that he is as optimistic as ever about the future of FaZe Clan. So, good news there. Now, the plan does seem to be something along the lines of they want to bring back some of like the old guys, the old influencers, and put them in trustee positions on the board. That's what's being sort of said and intimated behind the scenes. That's what that earlier tweet from March 22nd alludes to. But, I mean, I don't understand how that fixes it. They still need a private buyer. That's the problem that FaZe has. And if they can't find somebody willing to sort of take on all of that debt, and included, by the way, the existing debt and the operational costs they've got up until November 2023, which, listen, the way this year's going, that's going to be in a week. You know what I mean? Like, this year's going fast. It was just Christmas yesterday, you know? So they really need to find a buyer, and I don't know who the fuck is going to buy FaZe. Keep in mind, you know, as we'll get to, TSM put a pause on their esports operations. CLG sold their brand to NRG, right? Probably for a song, you know, a cup of tea. You have to wonder who's going to come in and buy like a big esports operation with loads of moving parts and loads of like team obligations, salary obligations. Like, I'll call this for you on stream. If the FaZe CSGO team doesn't make it to the major, they're just gonna disband. Because why would you stick around? Why would you stick around and fucking wait just to get, you know, taken out to the woodshed? That's an easy thing to predict. Ultimately, there is a world where I think the FaZe brand, they'll keep it on like what I call silent running. You know, it's where, or you shut down all non-essential systems. But that will be with a view to sell it. and sell it to somebody else. And then the only people buying in this market is like Saudi, you know, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, all of our old friends. It's not looking good for FaZe at all. They're not going to get a conventional esports buyer. Not with all their debt, not with all the legacy costs, not with all the stock issues, not with having to like basically go to the board that have got all these stock options and sort of get them to leave and all the wrangling they're going to have to do that. It's going to be bad. Like, it's going to be really, really bad. FaZe not in a good spot.